Lucis Trust, a non-profit, non-political, and non-sectarian organization on the roster of the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations, and concerned with the establishment of world cooperation and goodwill, presents Inner Sight with your host, Robert Anderson. He, with Sarah and Dale McKechnie, President and Vice President of Lucis Trust, will discuss philosophical and spiritual topics essential to everyday life. Now here's your host, Robert Anderson.
Welcome. Inner sight is simply seeing that which is always present, but not yet fully recognized. You have within you the ability to see yourself and the world around you in a new way with new eyes. So, stay with us and together we'll look at the world and ourselves with inner sight. Our topic for today is Atlantis. And we also have a gift for you, but we'll have time more to go into what that gift is later on in the show. So stay with us and we'll speak about it to you and define what you have to do in order to get that gift. The main inspiration for the dialogue that you hear on this show comes from the works of Alice Bailey. She's the founder of the Lucis Trust organization. Lucis Trust sponsors this show, and she wrote 24 volumes of literature, and all the dialogue you hear is from that literature, as is the following thought. The sense of God, of immortality, of subtle inner relationships, and of worship, and the undue sensitivity of modern man is our outstanding heritage from Atlantis. I thought Atlantis was strictly a myth. Is there some spiritual basis for believing Atlantis really existed?
Apparently there is. Yes, it's one of those great enduring myths that never seems to evaporate completely, and that probably most intelligent, educated people treat with skepticism. However, there are references throughout human history to this civilization that apparently lived and thrived in what is now the Atlantic and disappeared in a great flood, which is a theme and a story, an epic that's found in many different religions. And even Plato referred to Atlantis. To me, like all myths, whether or not there's any real, documentable, verifiable evidence for its existence or not, there are truths that are encapsulated in this myth and that have much to teach us today. And one of the most important aspects of understanding Atlantis is suggested in the opening thought when you spoke of our enduring heritage from Atlantis. Atlantis left a legacy that conditions society today, particularly the United States.
Yes, it said a lot of the souls who once inhabited that continent of Atlantis have also returned to the United States and this part of the world, and they brought a lot of the problems that we still have today, and that's one of the things that we should kind of bear in mind, is the historical connection there with Atlantis in terms of consciousness in particular.
And the United States does have a particular relationship to Atlantis, evidently, because this, especially the eastern part of the country, is located in the vicinity of where Atlantis was, and also it's said that a lot of the souls who lived on Atlantis thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago are drawn to the United States, which gives this country its psychic and religious bent and its spiritualistic religious approach, if people are familiar with spiritualism. So there are remnants of Atlantis that are quite unique to the United States, apparently.
But it's it's inherited in the whole of humanity. Let's say have kind of inherited a lot of these characteristics that were predominated in Atlantis. And I think it's important to see how Atlantis fits into the whole process of evolution.
It has to do with consciousness, doesn't it?
That's the best way to really understand it. I mean, we can get caught up in the physical aspects of Atlantis because it was a very advanced society at the time, but it's important to see that what was going on in the consciousness of the Atlanteans, and even prior to the Atlanteans times, the consciousness of the human race that was evolving. And that's very important to see this whole thing in this kind of historical context.
Well, maybe we should sort of sketch out the three major civilizations that in the writings of the Ageless Wisdom qualify or quantify human consciousness and its evolution. The earliest of the civilizations is called Lemuria, which some of our listeners might have heard of. And ancient Lemuria was, I suppose we could say, the home or the civilization of what we would call animal man.
You're right. The emphasis during the Lemurian time, which goes back millions of years, but the emphasis was on the physical body, of developing the physical nature. And that's why there was not consciousness as we know it today, but it was strictly focused on the development of the consciousness, of the physical makeup, and the development of the physical body. And millions of years later, at the pace that evolution goes, it was decided to include a more emotional desire nature and to develop that aspect of human nature.
So the Atlantean civilization that we are talking about today is a step forward from the Lemurian stage, because it brought about the development of the emotional feeling life in the human being. It's said that the people of Atlantis had really no mind, no mentality at all, speaking in terms of the lower mind that reasons, plans, plots, analyzes, discriminates, makes choices. The people of that time had next to no mind at all. They felt. They lived and they felt. They sensed, they suffered, they desired. They lived completely as prisoners of their emotional bodies, and that was for the purpose of developing that level of sensitivity. Mm-hmm. It had a function.
Right, because it's part of our nature that had to be developed. And I think you should point out that there were more advanced beings, apparently, during these times that were guiding the race of men along at that time. They were providing the ways in which the cities and the civilizations could be built. The cities were large, and they were much the same as we have today, we are told. But they had inventions, and they had hygiene, and they had cities and with large buildings, and they even had command over the air, and they had aircraft, we are told. But all of these great inventions were given to the people by the initiates of the time, and so that in a way helped to stimulate the desire nature, the desire for more material things, which was right and proper in its time. But as time goes on, that really got them into trouble, because as we know, a great schism erupted, and the war broke out, and there was a lot of problems.
During this period of Atlantean civilization, the consciousness of the human being developed a kind of a religious approach to life that hadn't been present before. And that's where our tendency even today to mysticism and to religious devotion